Myth and history come together in the story of King Arthur, a tale full of magic, bravery, and betrayal. A young boy pulls a sword from a stone to become king. He builds Camelot, a kingdom of honor and justice. Yet even the greatest kings face betrayal, and Arthur's story ends in tragedy. Was Arthur a real hero who united Britain, or is he just a legend? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. For nearly 400 years, Britain flourished under the rule of the Roman Empire, a period defined by order, peace, and unmatched infrastructure. The Romans built roads, forts, and cities, ensuring the island was well defended against invaders. But by 410 CE, the once mighty empire began to crumble, and its distant provinces were no longer a priority. The Romans withdrew their legions, leaving Britain exposed and vulnerable. With the loss of Roman protection, the island became a battleground. Saxons, Picts, and other tribes saw an opportunity to conquer, and chaos quickly engulfed the land. Warlords and rival factions fought for control, tearing apart the fragile peace that had once existed. As villages burned and families were displaced, Britain sank into a brutal struggle for survival. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, the legend of King Arthur began to take root. A hero was needed to unite the fractured land, a figure who could rise above the chaos and lead Britain into a new era. Uther Pendragon, King of the Britons, was a fierce warrior and determined leader, but he struggled to unite the warring tribes of Britain. His fiery temper and uncompromising nature often alienated potential allies, leaving the kingdom fractured. Desperate for guidance, Uther turned to Merlin, a wizard whose foresight and magical prowess were legendary. Merlin devised a plan that would forever alter Britain's fate. After the death of Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall, who had fallen in battle fighting Uther, Merlin used his powerful enchantments to transform Uther into the exact likeness of Gorlois. This allowed Uther to approach Igraine, the Duke's wife, without suspicion. Their union resulted in the birth of Arthur, a child of destiny. To protect Arthur from the dangers surrounding his birth, Merlin entrusted him to Sir Ector, a loyal nobleman. Raised in secrecy, Arthur grew up unaware of his royal lineage, living humbly in Ector's household. Meanwhile, Britain fell further into chaos, with its people longing for a leader to restore order. After Uther's death, Britain was left without a clear successor. Warlords and rival factions vied for power, plunging the land into anarchy. Merlin, knowing Arthur's true destiny, devised a test to reveal the rightful king. One fateful morning, under the first light of dawn, Merlin approached an ancient stone and performed a powerful spell. With intricate gestures and incantations, he embedded a sword into the stone, declaring that only the true king of Britain could pull it free. The sword's golden hilt gleamed with an almost divine light, etched with ancient runes that whispered of a time long past, and a king destined to unite a broken kingdom. Years passed, and many attempted to remove the sword, but all failed. Then, during a gathering of nobles, Arthur, still unaware of his royal heritage, stepped forward at Merlin's urging. Arthur hesitated for a moment, the weight of the sword's legacy pressing on his chest. A strange pull towards the stone seemed to awaken something deep within him. With trembling hands, he grasped the hilt, the sword almost seeming to respond to his touch. To everyone's astonishment, he effortlessly pulled the sword from the stone, proving his destiny as king. The crowd erupted in awe and celebration. Arthur, though initially hesitant, accepted his role as Britain's leader. The cheers of the crowd rang in his ears, but he stood still for a moment, gazing at the sword in his hand. The weight of the blade felt both foreign and familiar, a symbol of a kingdom he had never known but was now destined to lead. This moment marked the beginning of his reign and the fulfillment of the prophecy. Arthur's first challenge as king was to unite a fractured Britain. With unwavering determination, he set to work building Camelot, a castle that became the heart of his reign and a symbol of peace, justice, and unity. Inside, the grand halls were adorned with symbols of the kingdom's unity, each one a reminder of the vision Arthur had for his people. At the heart of Camelot stood the Round Table, a revolutionary symbol of equality. Here, Arthur and his knights gathered as equals, bound by their shared commitment to justice and loyalty, with no knight above another. It was a place where bonds were formed not only by blood, but by honor. During this time, Arthur married Guinevere, a noblewoman renowned for her beauty and grace. Their union was seen as a means of strengthening alliances and symbolizing the unity of the realm. Guinevere's charm and wisdom made her beloved by the people, and she quickly became an integral part of Arthur's vision for Camelot's future. But in the quiet moments between duties, Guinevere often found herself wrestling with the weight of her new responsibilities. Though deeply in love with Arthur, she could not help but feel the pressure of being a queen, a role thrust upon her by fate and duty. Merlin remained Arthur's closest advisor, guiding him through political and military challenges. His foresight and magical prowess were indispensable, and when rival factions threatened to divide the kingdom, Merlin used his insight to predict their moves, allowing Arthur to outmaneuver them. In battle, Merlin's illusions misled enemies, giving Arthur's forces the upper hand. His magic also calmed tensions during negotiations, fostering peace and unity where once there had been only division. One of Arthur's earliest triumphs was the Battle of Badon Hill. As the forces of Britain clashed against invaders, Merlin's enchantments bolstered the morale of Arthur's troops, cloaking their numbers and creating the illusion of a much larger army. With victory in hand, Arthur achieved a decisive win that not only secured the safety of his kingdom, but also solidified his place as Britain's unifying leader. Camelot's dream had begun to take root, and its future, while uncertain, looked brighter than ever. If you enjoyed this journey through Arthurian legend, please subscribe and ring the bell for more stories from history and myth. What part of Arthur's story resonates most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Arthur's reign was further strengthened by Excalibur, the legendary sword gifted to him by the Lady of the Lake. A mystical figure shrouded in mystery, the Lady of the Lake was the guardian of powerful enchantments. She emerged from her watery domain to bestow Excalibur upon Arthur, granting him unmatched strength and symbolizing his divine right to rule. Excalibur was no ordinary weapon. It gleamed with an unearthly light, and its blade was said to be unbreakable. With this sword, Arthur became invincible in battle, inspiring his knights and striking fear into his enemies. Excalibur was not just a tool of war, but a reminder of the great responsibility Arthur bore as king. Morgana, Arthur's half-sister, was born to Igraine and her first husband, Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall. After Gorlois' death in battle and Igraine's marriage to Uther Pendragon, Morgana grew up resenting Uther's dominance and the circumstances surrounding Arthur's birth. Raised with a natural affinity for magic, Morgana sought solace in her growing mastery of sorcery, guided by mysterious and darker forces. Her resentment towards Arthur grew as he rose to power, believing that his birth had usurped what should have been her rightful influence in the kingdom. Yet, in the quiet moments, a flicker of doubt sometimes crept into her heart. Was it truly Arthur who had wronged her, or had she simply been consumed by her own desire for vengeance? In the end, the hatred burned too brightly, and Morgana chose to fuel it rather than seek redemption. Determined to destroy Arthur's reign, Morgana devised a series of schemes to fracture Camelot's unity. Her most sinister act was using her enchantments to manipulate Sir Lancelot, Arthur's most trusted knight. She cast a spell to intensify Lancelot's feelings for Queen Guinevere, creating the foundation of the betrayal that would divide the kingdom. But the affair was only the beginning. Morgana's true aim was far darker. Morgana needed a son, one who would serve as both a symbol of her anger and her instrument of vengeance. She used her magic to disguise herself as Guinevere, seducing Arthur in an illusion that felt all too real. The union resulted in the conception of Mordred. Raised by Morgana, Mordred was instilled with hatred for Arthur and groomed to believe he was the rightful heir to Camelot. Yet, as Mordred grew, there were moments when doubt gnawed at him, a longing to know his true father, to understand the man he had been taught to despise. But Morgana's constant manipulation kept him firmly on the path of vengeance. Mordred would be her weapon, her revenge against the kingdom she believed had betrayed her. Arthur's marriage to Queen Guinevere was seen as a union that would strengthen the kingdom. Guinevere, admired for her grace and intellect, quickly won the hearts of Camelot's people. She was more than just a queen. She was a symbol of the realm's unity and hope. Yet, despite her outward composure, her growing bond with Sir Lancelot, born of mutual respect and admiration, soon blossomed into a forbidden love. What began as a bond of respect soon became something deeper, something neither could resist. Lancelot, sworn to protect Arthur, wrestled with the guilt of his growing feelings for the queen, while Guinevere, torn between her love for her husband and her attraction to the knight, found herself caught in a web of passion and shame. The affair, though hidden at first, eventually came to light. Their secret could not remain buried forever. When the truth was revealed, it shattered the trust between Arthur and those closest to him. Arthur's heart broke as he learned that the two people he trusted most, his queen and his most loyal knight, had betrayed him. The revelation created a rift within Camelot. Some knights, like Gawain, sided with Arthur, unable to forgive the betrayal. Others, such as Agravain, viewed the affair as a symbol of Camelot's inevitable downfall and distanced themselves from the ideals they had once sworn to uphold. The unity of the Round Table, once the cornerstone of Arthur's reign, began to crumble. The kingdom that Arthur had fought so hard to unite now stood divided, not by external enemies, but by the betrayals of those he loved most. The affair, though a personal tragedy, marked the beginning of the end for Camelot. A strange son brought Camelot to its knees. Mordred, raised by Morgana to hate Arthur, believed he was the rightful heir to the throne. Fueled by anger and ambition, he gathered an army of disillusioned knights and warriors determined to overthrow his father. The two forces met at Camelot, a field that would forever be remembered in legend. The tension was palpable as Arthur stood at the forefront of his army, Excalibur gleaming in his hand. Across the field, Mordred stood defiantly, his banner raised high. For Arthur, this was not just a battle for Camelot. It was a fight for the very ideals it stood for: unity, honor, and justice. As the armies clashed, the air was filled with the sounds of swords clanging and cries of battle. Arthur fought with a combination of skill and desperation, his every strike fueled by the knowledge that this battle would decide Camelot's fate. His knights, though fewer in number, fought valiantly beside him, inspired by their king's unwavering determination. In the midst of the chaos, Arthur and Mordred finally faced each other. Mordred's eyes burned with hatred as he accused Arthur of betrayal. "You built a kingdom on lies," he shouted, raising his sword. Arthur, his voice steady despite his heartbreak, replied, "Camelot was built on hope and unity. I will not let hatred destroy it." Their duel was fierce and unforgiving. Each strike of their swords carried the weight of their opposing beliefs: Arthur's desire to protect the kingdom he built, and Mordred's quest to claim what he believed was his birthright. The The battlefield seemed to fall silent as the father and son clashed in a storm of steel and fury. Finally, Arthur struck a fatal blow, piercing Mordred's armor and ending the rebellion. But as Mordred fell, he delivered a final desperate strike, mortally wounding Arthur. Both men collapsed, their blood staining the ground of the battlefield. Arthur, weak but resolute, called for Sir Bedivere, his most loyal knight. "Take Excalibur," he whispered. "Return it to the Lady of the Lake. Its power must not remain in the hands of men." Bedivere hesitated, reluctant to part with the sword that had become a symbol of Arthur's reign. But with a heavy heart, he carried out his king's final command. Standing by a serene lake, Bedivere cast Excalibur into the water. As the blade disappeared beneath the surface, a mystical hand emerged to catch it, the Lady of the Lake reclaiming what was hers. Arthur, his life slipping away, gazed at the horizon. Memories of Camelot's golden days filled his mind, the laughter in the great hall, the unity of the round table, and the hope that had once burned so brightly. "I tried," he murmured. "Camelot was my dream. May it inspire others." With Arthur's passing, Camelot's light dimmed. The kingdom, once a beacon of hope and justice, was no more. The knights who survived scattered, and the dream of unity crumbled under the weight of betrayal and loss. Yet the story of Arthur and Camelot endured. Passed down through generations, it became a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the eternal struggle for justice. Even in its fall, Camelot's ideals continued to inspire, proving that while kingdoms may rise and fall, the power of hope and unity lives on. King Arthur's story, shaped by writers like Geoffrey of Monmouth and Sir Thomas Malory, has inspired centuries of tales of heroism and tragedy. Camelot's ideals of honor and unity continue to influence literature and art, making Arthur an enduring symbol of strength. In 1191, the discovery of Arthur and Guinevere's remains at Glastonbury Abbey, though later debunked, sparked renewed interest and cemented his place in folklore. The mystery of his final resting place only deepened the myth. Arthur's prophecy of return as the once and future king remains a symbol of hope, proving that while the truth of his existence may never be known, his legacy continues to inspire. If you enjoy this journey through Arthurian legend, please subscribe and ring the bell for more stories from history and myth. What part of Arthur's story resonates most with you? Share your thoughts in the comments below.